What's up, fantasy fans, hopeful comic book fans? Today I'm going to do something a little different than just my regular book reviews. Let me get this mic closer to my face. Um, so I've noticed that common trends in the fantasy booktube community in general has been more open towards manga lately, but I feel like American comics have kind of slipped through the cracks. And I've been a fan of American graphic novels since I was a kid, and I do believe the genre is not the genre, the medium is saturated by a lot of like Marvel is very known for putting universe storylines over, creative freedom for the author. DC has been better about that, but I mean still there are times where you can see some of the artistic freedom is infringed upon in sacrificed in the name of the greater universe narrative. But today I want to highlight some great comic books based on fantasy books that are very popular and that a lot of people really love, or at least that I love. And so first up, I want to go with Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. So Sword of Kaigen is a story with a lot of militaristic propaganda, and I wanted to pick a story like that. But another thing that was very intrinsic to what made Sword of Kaigen so great and what made it so loved by so many readers was the phenomenal mother character of Misaki, the way it examined motherhood. And I think no book slash comic better captures what was great about Sword of Kaigen than Strange Adventures by Tom King, art by Mitch Gerrits. Has truly phenomenal character work, and the main character in Strange Adventures, or I guess the love interest of the main character, you have to read the book to really see what I'm talking about, but the way it examines motherhood and also the way it examines propaganda and patriotism and the dangers of that is very similar to Sword of Kaigen. I do think Sword of Kaigen is a slightly better work of fiction, but you're comparing, a 10 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. Both of these, I think, are absolute powerhouses in the mediums that they reside in. And I think comic book fans, you know how good Strange Adventures is. Fantasy fans, you know how good Sword of Kaigen is. If you've read one or either of these works and enjoyed them, I promise you there is something you will love about, the opposite. And that goes for all the books on this list. So next up, another indie published fantasy book, Dreams of the Dying. And what I'm choosing to go with Dreams of the Dying is another Tom King graphic novel, and that is going to be Mr. Miracle, which is my personal favorite comic book of all time. Dreams of the Dying and Mr. Miracle, with Jespar Dalveric, or Jespar Trey Moresti, as he's known in the new revised version of Dreams of the Dying, and Scott Free, are both men that are suffering from severe bouts of melancholia and depression and suicidal thoughts, and both of them go on this journey through the narrative of not necessarily finding happiness, but overcoming depression and knowing that you can still be sad and still feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, but you can still keep going. And there's always that hope that things will get better. All right, so if you're a fan of The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, then I definitely recommend you check out Hellboy and BPRD by Mike Mignola. It has that same, detective feel, this paranormal investigation that Harry Dresden has. It's very similar, but it kind of relies more on like folklore tales and less on like Freak of the Week. Like most of the monsters in this are based off of, folk tales and mythologies. Another pick for similar to Dresden Files, I would go Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. Another Freak of the Week type thing where there's some paranormal threat, some otherworldly thing is attacking, and then Swamp Thing and Abby have to go investigate. The Alan Moore run is phenomenal. It eventually gets into like some cosmic stuff going on, but most of the run, I feel like fans of Harry Dresden would find a lot to enjoy. And actually, the character Constantine, which many people compare to Dresden, first appeared in the pages of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. All right, next up, if you enjoy The Obsidian Path by Michael R. Fletcher or The Eden Saga by Justin Lee Anderson, then I think you will be in for a treat with Seven to Eternity by Rick Remender, art by Jerome Opeña. So in Seven to Eternity, you have a very morally gray protagonist, bordering on black sometimes. And see, the similarities to Eden would kind of be a spoiler to Eden. But if you enjoyed either of these books and you know kind of the trajectory that the characters go on, um, the story of Adam Osidus in Seven to Eternity is one permeated with strife and conflict and moral ambiguity. Seven to Eternity takes place in a world where you have what is called the King of Whispers, and he can basically make a deal with you, but then you become his eyes, his ears. He can see through you, and he has a hold on you once you make a deal with him. And it's just phenomenal. You do not see a lot of grimdark fantasy comic books with this level of artistic integrity, with this level of creativity. The art is absolutely transcendent. The writing is sharp and you know, it's one of those series where it didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome. It felt like it could have gone on even longer. If you're fans of The Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio, then the comic book I would recommend for you is Descender by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. And that is a sci-fi series about you know, this kind of like human Cielson conflict is very similar to the humans, and I believe they're the Reavers. Forget what they're called, but there's these like ancient robotic beings that are like godlike in Descender, and they came and they like decimated the galaxy, and there's hintings that they might come back. And then after that Descender series, Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen went on to write Ascender, which is a more fantasy inspired series but set in that same universe. It's sci fantasy. There's robots, there's also dragons. If you enjoyed Piranesi by Susanna Clark, you know, this kind of story of like, how did we get here, what's going on, you follow this character in this house and you don't know how he got there or why he's there, then I recommend Black Hammer. Black Hammer is about a group of superheroes that were once, you know, the heroes of Spiral City, and now they're on this farm. They don't know how they got there. They don't know what happened. And unraveling this mystery of how they got here, and a lot of things on the farm are not quite right. I definitely recommend Black Hammer, and if you enjoy that, go on and read the entire Black Hammer universe. There's like one or two series within the Black Hammer universe that were not to my liking, but it's still batting, you know, like 29 out of 30. Like it's still, you know, it's still one of my favorite universes to return to, much like the Hellboy universe. Is very consistent, unlike a lot of the quality we see in the big two. Loved it. All right. So if you're a comic book or fantasy fan, recommend to me some comic books that you think would be good based off of my fantasy reading, or vice versa, off my fantasy reading, what sort of comics you think are good. I definitely want to do this video again as I read more comics and as I read more fantasy novels, because I would like the fantasy community to become a little bit more aware of what's going on in the comic space, because I feel like a lot of fantasy readers would really enjoy some of what's going on in the comic industry. Comic books do have this kind of turbulent history of being bogged down by, you know, needing to hit a certain sales, or, you know, the company is not allowing artists to have the freedom they want. But I still think that medium is filled with such talented and creative voices that we should give them a look. Peace.